welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today I'm going to talk a lot of different things and go over a few acquisitions and information I've been able to find out on them, and how I came about, even why I'm such a big junk collector. Anyway, going back to our comments, I couldn't figure out what this saw was here. I couldn't find any information on it. It's a Homelite. It doesn't say a model number on it really, it just says Homelite chainsaw, and it's a real late production. I find it's the early 90s. Mr. Georgia Papas was a person that sent me information on it, and it made in the early 90s, and it's a 33cc, weighs 8 pounds 8 ounces, just the power head. It's got a 16-inch bar, which says on it here. Runs at 12,500 RPM with no load, and has 3/8 low profile chain. This is a full safety chain here, so once I get it running it probably won't cut for beans. I tried to find a carburetor kit for it, and I finally found one, but it's got a Brand X Zama carburetor, which I don't like, but that was a cheap version of the Tillotson basically. Anyway, it's all plastic. It's got a little, even the muffler guard is plastic. It's one that didn't melt. It's got a purge valve built into the fuel cap, which is kind of weird, but I finally found one of those. This one's got a big crack in it. Anyway, should be an interesting piece of junk. Then we're going to go to our latest acquisition here. Friends of mine, Mr. C and Mr. Randy, and I went to a museum of mechanical marvels recently, and then after we got back we're sitting around BSing, and Randy had given me the Stihl 051 I've done some videos on, and he and his brother gave me the Stihl 031 that I have also. He said, you know, I got one more chainsaw down in the basement. He said, I think it's a Remington, but let's go look for it. So anyway, we went down, and actually a Homelite with the original case and whatnot, and this is a late model. This is a saw I used to loan out to people. If you don't like people, they say, hey, can I borrow your chainsaw? Yeah, you give them a Poland Wild thing or Wood Shark or some other horrible piece of crap or something like this, and that way they'll never ask you to borrow anything ever again, which is a good deal. But anyway, we'll get this open here. I cleaned the inside of the case, it was just full of oil and stuff, but we got the handle off, and there really isn't a whole lot wrong with it. It's a Homelite Model 240. They're again a late production, and one of the reasons they loan it out is it wouldn't shut off, and so when I took it apart to check and see what was wrong, it was just a broken wire on the kill switch. But anyway, this is a made in the mid to late 80s. It's 39.3 cc. It's got 2.16 horsepower at 8,000 RPM. Weighs 9 pounds and 9 ounces with the power head only. Runs at 12,500 RPM wide open. Comes with a 16 or 18-inch bar max. 3/8 low profile chain. It's totally complete. Here's the top cover I've got off. I was cleaned the air cleaner and stuff like that. It was really a weirdly built saw. The oil pump is sitting up here, and it's all plastic, and most of it, the case and the side cover here are plastic, but the cover on the chain is actually metal. And so anyway, here's what your typically non-maintained chainsaw looks like. Yuck. So here's the kill wire I fixed. But anyway, we'll get this cleaned up, and later in the video we'll come back, and I've had it running like I say, so I'll get it cleaned up and take it out and see if it'll cut some wood just to see what it's like. So anyway, we'll be back here with some more stuff. here we are with some more treasures, but just wanted to talk a little bit about why I've always liked vintage stuff. Growing up, I worked on my uncle's farms, and the equipment they had was all really old even then. One uncle had big orchards, and we had a 1934 Alice Chalmers WC tractor that we used in the orchard work. He had Caterpillar 22s, little crawler tractors from the late 20s, early 30s that we used to use for spraying the fields and doing ditch work and whatnot. And my other uncle had a 1942 Alice Chalmers Model B tractor, and which I've inherited. I have that in my collection. But anyway, everybody had old stuff because money wasn't very prevalent. It was a farming community, so you just used what you had. And so at an early age, I just learned how to work on stuff, and some of my uncles were really good tutors and stuff, and helped me out learning stuff, and so it just continued through my whole life. But anyway, you can see that we collect a lot of different things. You've only seen the tip of the iceberg, really, because, you know, people say, well, gee, Mr. Obsolete, what do you collect, or what's your main hobby? And I say, well, my main hobby is really simple. I don't have that many hobbies, and what it is collecting anything and everything with an engine or a motor on it, and then all the peripheral stuff that goes with it. There's a few exceptions. I have a small vintage bicycle collection which we can show, but I'd like to hear from you, comment-wise and stuff, if you'd like me to broaden my spectrum of stuff, because, you know, most of the videos we've done are with tractors, and lots of them with chainsaws, vintage chainsaws. And the reason for that is that's the most used piece of power equipment that we have, and, you know, I like collecting them, and I've got a nice diverse collection, so there's always something new I can drag out. But anyway, like I say, I'd like to hear from you if you want me to branch out. So you've seen several videos on vintage lawnmowers. This one here is the rarest one I have, and it's really interesting because of the slick Art Deco design. It's got a lot of weird features on it. You see the wheels are staggered, and it has a single wheel in the back. I'll turn it around after a bit here after I talk about it. But, you know, companies, when the rotary lawnmower first came on the scene after World War II, you know, there was no standard. It was just, you know, let's try this or let's try that, see what works, what doesn't work, and so that makes them real interesting. This one is really weird because the blade, which is off it, and I'm missing a couple of parts, it'll make it difficult to restore, but on the engine crankshaft, we'll come over and take a picture of it later under the cover here. It actually has a beveled drive wheel, and the blade is run off that by friction drive, which is really a bad idea, because, you know, if you hit a rock or something, the blade stops and the motor's still running, so I'll put a flat spot on that friction disc there. And this one is a 1946. The engine's a Clinton, and it's a really low serial number, and the first 2 years that Clinton engines were made in Clinton, Michigan, and so that's how I dated this one. But anyway, you know, it's an aluminum deck. Turn it around here, you can see the back wheel, but even the back wheel's offset too, which is kind of strange. But the idea is that here's a little low spot here, so if you're coming here like that, it kind of keeps an even keel. And on some of my earlier videos, I showed the lawn boy with a staggered wheel on the front, and that sets it so it equals it out to make a nice smooth cut, even if your ground's rough, like in my front yard there, the weed patch. So anyway, here's the other mower we had on a recent video too. And that there again, you know, their idea was to have the wheel straight across and front ones so that it can't scalp too much, and it does have one on the back. The wheel's missing, but it's got the cast bracket and whatnot. And this is a later one because of the later Clinton engine, but we'll come over and take some pictures of them here. Okay, well, we're back with another hobby here. Talked earlier about vintage bicycles. There used to be a great big bicycle club. I used to be really active and met some of the most interesting people that are bicycle collectors. They're a diverse group of people from every walk of life. Well, anyway, what we would do is, it was quite a ways away, and we'd go down, leave after work and drive down there, and by the time we got there the meeting was over, which was good because we don't like to listen to all the politics and BS, and we get to look at all the vintage bikes and talk to the people directly and whatnot, and so that worked out perfect for us. But right as I walk it in the front there, this guy had this old Stingray here, 67 I believe, and bought it for 25 bucks. That's 35 years ago, and they're a little uncomfortable to ride, but you know, for short distances and stuff, it's okay. But they're a neat little bike. You know, the paint's bad, and the cover here off the chain cover is not the right one, and it's got rust on the bars and stuff. You know, I'm not ever going to restore it, but you know, the bearings and all that stuff, I service stuff so everything works. It may not look that great, but mechanically it's perfect. And eventually I had to put new tires on it because the old ones exploded. And you know, bicycles, there's a lot of innovation in those. This thing, you know, your standard low-end model Stingray just had a direct drive, and they're a little hard to pedal and stuff. This one actually has a 2-speed rear hub. It was made by the Bendix Corporation, and you take the pedals and go halfway back to the braking position. It'll shift gears, and if you want to stop, you just go all the way back. And so you can go out, and there's a big hill not too far from here, so if I go out riding, I just go down and then put it in low gear and come right back up. Neat stuff. And you know, like I say, I don't have a real big collection of vintage bicycles, but I got some early ones and some real interesting ones. I'll talk about them more, but there again, in the comments, if you want to see them, let me know. If you don't, let me know too, and I won't put them on. But anyway, I like old bicycles even though they're not powered, but I know what you're thinking. I bet Mr. Obsolete has some bicycles with motors on them. Well, I ain't gonna tell you. You'll just have to keep watching. Some year you might find out. So anyway, when we come back from the video later here, I'll get the Homelite 240 cleaned up and put together, and then take it out for a test cut. And then, well, we're back. We got our Homelite 240 here. You can see how nice the case cleaned up. I don't think the sod had a whole lot of use and stuff, but anyway, let's take it out of the case here. So what we're going to do here, and I fired up, and cut some wood with it. Now I've cleaned it inside and out. It really looks a whole lot nicer. And I got it running without rebuilding the carb, so it's a little touchy yet. It's really cold-blooded and whatnot. So anyway, we'll get out the mini sawhorse here. Get some nice hardwood here and see how it cuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a grade. So for absolutely top of line, it'd be A+, and if it's a piece of crap, it's an F-. So A through F, just like going to school. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're going to do some cutting here. Well, it beats a handsaw. Well, anyway, I'm gonna give this a grade of C+. And the reason for that is C stands for cheap piece of cheesy crapola, and plus is it actually cuts pretty good, even though it's got a high rake or safety chain on it. It's not too bad. But there's one thing on this saw that really makes it special. We'll show it here. Muffler's all full of ick. But the thing that makes this special over other little Homelites I have is right here. The bar nut has a flange nut here and has a special acorn nut here. So it's special. So we'll be back with some more BS here in a minute. Well, you can see another good piece of junk on the farm here. So I want to thank my friend Randy for donating this. He's donated other saws to us. And yeah, the weird thing is though, I don't travel that often anymore. I have a magnetic personality, and anytime I go somewhere, some new piece of junk follows me home. And it's interesting because the magnetism I have isn't strictly for steel. It's for magnesium, copper, aluminum, lead, bronze, plastic. So anyway, I went to a meet here over the weekend, and went to a vintage boat and motor meet, and I've had outboard motors ever since I was in the 5th grade. So I wanted to show you something I got here, talk about it. Yeah, the first motor I ever had was a 1935 Evinrude Fisherman twin of 5.5 horsepower. And one of the fun things they do at these get-togethers is they have a raffle. And so I won this in the raffle. This is a 1936 Johnson Model 300. 3.7 horsepower. And mostly aluminum. The only thing that's steel is the cast iron of the cylinders here, but everything else on it's aluminum, and it was way ahead of its time. It's just amazing to think back that Johnson and Evinrude, which are no longer around, used to have 82% of the world market, of the outboard market. And you know, Evinrude recently closed down. Now all we got's Japanese engines, mostly Tohatsu and Yamaha and Suzuki and stuff like that. One thing that's kind of funny about Tohatsu, in 1962 they introduced outboard motors, and the main thing they were making at the time was little small motorcycles. Well, they went bankrupt on their motorcycles, and the outboard kept them going and stuff, and they're the world's largest producer of outboard motors today. So anyway, I like the old junk, obviously, since I'm Mr. Obsolete. But anyway, the other engine we got here okay, well, the other engine we got here is a 1947 Evinrude Sportsman. It's a 2 horsepower, little 1 cylinder. And down on the lower unit you can see the prop is at an angle. That's what they call a fisherman drive. That's if you're in a weedy or twigs under the water and stuff, and hit it and lift up the motor without tearing the prop and shearing the shear pin. And I had this running already, but the bad thing is it's got a bad connecting rod in it, so I'll have to find a parts motor to fix it. But anyway, I was a big spender. Spent $10 for the raffle and ended up with 2 outboard motors. The Johnson's a runner, it runs really nice, and a really nice gas tank too. So each one of these, I got $3.33 1/3 in them, which suits me fine since I'm thrifty, or in layman's terms, cheap. So anyway, we got one more thing we want to do. Well, for the last part of our exciting video for today, I'm going to take a cruise on our old Schwinn Stingray here. And I was talking before, it has a 2-speed hub in the back. It's got a low gear and a high gear. So what I'm going to do is I'll take off in the low gear, and then as I come by, you can see I'll push the pedal back halfway and it'll kick into high gear. So remember, vintage is best. Keep watching Mr. Obsolete, because there's always something new to see. And in the comments, tell me if you want us to expand our things that we're covering and stuff more, or stick with the chainsaws and the tractors and the stuff we usually do. So let me know.